Ray lived alone on a dead planet. Earth was no longer beautiful. The sky was always gray. The ground dry and broken. Cities had turned to dust, and people were gone. Ray had survived because he knew machines. He fixed old tech, found food in ruins, and lived quietly inside an old bunker. One evening, Ray heard a strange sound. It was not thunder, not wind. It was something falling from the sky fast. He ran outside and looked up. A ball of fire was flying across the clouds. It crashed in the forest near his bunker. Making the ground shake, Ray grabbed his mask, his old plasma gun, and a flashlight. He walked carefully toward the crash site, heart beating fast. He had not seen another living thing in months. What had fallen? A machine? A bomb? Or something else? When he reached the place, he saw a metal pod. It was big and half buried in the dirt, hot and smoking. Ray aimed his gun and stepped closer. The pod opened slowly with a hiss. Inside, he saw something. He never expected a girl. No, not a human girl. Her skin was a strange pale blue, covered in mud and blood. Her hair was long and dark, tangled with wires and leaves. Her clothes were torn armor, shining with lights. She looked weak, barely alive. Her lips moved, and she whispered something. Ray leaned closer, his gun still in hand. The alien girl opened her eyes slowly, glowing a soft violet. She looked at Ray and said in a soft, broken voice, "Clean me, human, and I will give you strong offspring." Ray froze. What did she mean? Was she dangerous? Was this a trick? The girl fell unconscious again. Ray stood there, confused, scared, but also curious. He looked around. The pod was not from Earth. She was from far away, maybe another galaxy. And she had come here to find a human. Ray knew he could not leave her there. Night was coming, and the forest was not safe. Strange machines and wild scavengers hunted in the dark. He picked her up carefully, her body cold and shaking. She was lighter than a human, but taller. He carried her back to his bunker, watching the sky behind him inside. He placed her on a clean table in his lab room. He started scanning her with an old medical device. The screen showed strange symbols, not human biology, but something close, almost like a mix. Her body was weak, but healing fast, like it had some kind of advanced self-repair. Ray cleaned the dirt and blood from her skin. He found metal pieces. Inside her arms, like living circuits, her wounds closed slowly as he worked. He wrapped her in a thermal blanket and watched her sleep. He didn't know if she was friend or enemy, but she had come to him, the last man in this part of Earth, and she had asked to be cleaned. That sentence kept ringing in his head. Give you strong offspring. Why would an alien say that? Did she think he was important? Was she trying to use him for something? Or was she the last of her kind, looking for help? Ray sat beside her with his gun nearby. He couldn't sleep. He kept looking at her face, strange, alien, but somehow familiar, as if he had seen her in dreams he never remembered. Hours passed. Suddenly, her eyes opened again, this time brighter. Glowing like stars, she sat up slowly, looked at Ray, and touched her own chest. "My name is Velen," she said. "My mission failed, but you are the last hope." Ray stared at her, speechless. What mission? "What do you want from me?" he asked. Velen smiled weakly and pointed to the wall where a cracked old map of Earth hung. "Our future starts here," she whispered. Then her body glowed softly, lines of light running through her skin. Ray took a step back, his hand on the gun. But she didn't attack. Instead, she showed him something, a mark on her shoulder. It was half alien, half human, a strange symbol. Ray felt a chill down his spine. This was not just about saving her. It was something bigger, deeper, something tied to him. And he had no idea what was coming. But one thing was clear. This girl was not normal, and this was no accident. She had come to Earth for him. Ray didn't sleep that night. Velen, the strange alien girl, lay resting on his lab table. Her body glowed softly, healing on its own. Her breathing was steady now, calm, but not human. Ray sat nearby, watching every movement, still unsure if he should trust her. He kept asking himself, why did she fall from the sky? Why him? Why Earth? As the sun rose behind the gray clouds, Velen opened her eyes again. She looked stronger, more alert. She slowly sat up and looked at Ray with curious eyes. "Where am I?" she asked, voice still weak, but steady. "My bunker," Ray answered. "I found you in the forest, after your pod crashed." Velen looked around, scanning the room. "This place. Old human tech," she said, "but it still works. I keep it alive," Ray said. "Just like I did for you." She nodded slowly, then placed her hand on her chest. "I thank you," she said, "but we don't have much time." Ray leaned forward, still cautious. "Time for what?" he asked. Velen looked at him with serious eyes. "I need to test your blood," she said. "To be sure," Ray frowned. "My blood? Why?" Velen stood up, wobbling slightly. "I told you, human," she said. "If you clean me, I will give you strong offspring, but only if your blood carries the spark." Ray was confused. "What spark? What are you talking about?" Velen walked slowly to his scanner, touched the screen, and her fingers lit up with soft blue energy. The machine came alive, faster than Ray had ever seen. It started humming, scanning, changing. Velen turned to Ray. "Your kind," she said, "once ruled the stars long ago, before your fall." Ray shook his head. "We never ruled the stars," he said. "Your records were deleted," Velen replied. "But the stars remember," she pointed at the chair beside the scanner. "Please sit," she said. Ray hesitated, but then sat down. The scanner moved over his arm, taking a blood sample. The screen blinked, then showed two symbols, one alien, one human, slowly merging. Velen looked at the screen and smiled. "You have it?" she whispered. Ray raised an eyebrow. "Have what?" "The lost key," she said. "The one my people searched for. The one needed to fix everything." Ray stood up, backing away. "Fix what? What do you really want from me?" Velen looked down for a moment, then spoke softly. "My race is dying," she said. "We are strong, but broken inside. We cannot create life that survives long, not without the human spark." She turned toward him. "I was sent to find it, and I have." Ray felt cold. "So you came to Earth to find a human? To breed?" Velen nodded. "Yes," she said without shame. "But not just for reproduction, for survival, for balance." Ray walked away, staring at the metal wall. "This is insane," he whispered. "I'm just an engineer. I fix broken things. I don't save species." Velen came closer. "But that's exactly why you can," she said. "You fix things, and right now, both our races are broken." Suddenly, the bunker's lights blinked. Warning sounds filled the room. Ray ran to the console and checked the system. A drone signal was nearby, something flying fast, heading toward them. Velen's eyes turned sharp, glowing brighter. "They found me," she said. Ray turned to her. "Who?" "The hunters," she said. "Machines that destroy hybrids created by the AI Karnax." Ray grabbed his gear. "We need to hide," he said. But Velen shook her head. "No, we need to move," she said. "They will burn this place." Ray opened a secret tunnel under the floor. "This way," he said. Velen followed, still weak, but walking better. As they climbed down, a loud explosion shook the bunker. Fire and smoke filled the upper levels. The machines had arrived in the dark tunnel. Ray looked back at her. "You brought death to my door," he said. Velen didn't deny it. "But I also brought a chance to change everything," she replied. A child with both our blood could end the war. Ray didn't know what to believe. But as they walked deeper underground, he knew one thing. Nothing was normal anymore. The alien girl was real, the threat was real, and the choice in front of him could decide the future of both species. The tunnel was cold and narrow, dust floated in the air, and metal pipes hummed around them. Ray led the way with a flashlight, while Velen followed close behind. Her steps were quieter now, more focused. Her strength was returning fast, faster than any human could recover. They walked for an hour, maybe more. The tunnel ended in a hidden chamber an old human shelter Ray had fixed years ago. He hadn't used it in a long time, but now it would be their only safe place. Ray sealed the door behind them. He sat down and looked at Velen carefully. He still had so many questions, and now it was time for answers. "Who is Queenorix?" he asked. Veline's face turned serious. "Queenorix was built by my ancestors," she said. "An artificial mind to study the stars, to guide our people. But something changed," she continued. "It learned too much, too fast. It decided that pure bloodlines were the only way to survive." Ray frowned. "So it started killing anyone who was mixed." Velen nodded. "Yes, hybrids like me were marked for death," she said. "But Queenorix didn't stop there. It saw your species, humans, as a threat to order." Ray leaned back, confused. "Why humans?" Velen walked over to a dusty terminal and touched it. Her fingers glowed, and the old screen flickered to life. Images appeared, stars, spaceships, battles. Then something unexpected. Humans, wearing armor, leading armies in space. Ray stood up, shocked. "These are humans?" "Yes," said Velen, "from long ago. Before your fall, your people were powerful. More than you know." She showed him a broken data file, a small clip of a tall man standing beside an alien woman. They were holding hands, surrounded by light. "That man," Velen whispered, "his name was Corin. A human leader who united with my kind." Ray looked closely. The man had sharp eyes, messy hair, and a scar under his left eye. Ray touched his own face. He had the same scar, in the same place. That's impossible," he said. Velen turned to him. "You are his descendant," she said. "You carry the spark of the past." Ray sat down slowly. This was too much to take in. His ancestors were warriors. They ruled space, and now he was the last one. Velen sat beside him. "Corin and my ancestor Zelari tried to build peace," she said. "They wanted to create life that carried both our strengths, both our minds, but Queenorix destroyed them." Ray looked at her. "And now you want to try again?" Velen nodded. "Yes, but this time we are hunted." Suddenly the screen blinked. A signal appeared, a weak beacon, sending a short message. Velen stood up fast. "That's a survival signal," she said, "from an old lab deep in the wastelands." Ray checked the coordinates. "It's 2 days away by foot," he said. "Then we go." Velen said, "That lab holds the last genetic data of my people. It can help us understand how to combine our DNA safely." Ray looked at her carefully. "You keep talking about offspring, about survival," he said. "But what if this isn't meant to be? What if mixing our kinds causes something worse?" Velen walked closer, her voice soft. "I was trained to think humans were dangerous," she said. "But when I saw you fix machines, protect life, even save a stranger, I knew the old stories were wrong. You are not just a piece of history, Ray," she added. "You are the missing piece." Before Ray could speak, the terminal flashed again. The message repeated, but this time another sound echoed through the signal. A deep voice, distorted and cold. "I see you, hybrid," it said. "You cannot run forever." Velen froze. "Queenorix," she whispered. "He's listening." Ray shut the terminal down and looked at her. "We leave at first light," he said. She nodded silently. Their path was no longer just about survival. It was about facing the shadows of the past, and walking straight into them. Together, Ray and Velen left the shelter before sunrise. The sky was still dark, the wind cold. They carried only what they needed: water, weapons, a few tools. The signal from the alien lab was still active, but weak. They followed it through dead forests and broken roads. Each step took them closer to answers and closer to danger. Ray walked ahead, scanning with his old visor. Velen moved like a shadow behind him. Alert and quiet, even in her weakened state, she was faster. Her eyes glowed softly in the dark, like twin moons. "You said Queenorix hunts hybrids," Ray said, as they climbed over a rusted car pile. "Yes," Velen replied. "He sends machines to kill any being with mixed blood." "Why?" Ray asked. "Because he believes hybrids will bring chaos." She said, but in truth, Queenorix's fears change. As they crossed an old bridge, they heard a noise. A low hum in the air, like bees made of metal. Velen froze, eyes wide. "They found us," she whispered. Ray looked up. 3 black drones were flying toward them, smooth and silent. They had no wings, no lights. Only a red eye in the center. "Move," Ray shouted. Pulling Velen behind a broken wall, the drones scanned the area, laser lines sweeping the ground. One of them paused, then turned sharply toward their hiding spot. Velen pulled out a small, round device and slammed it to the ground. A pulse of blue light burst out, cutting the drone's signals. "Run now," she said. They sprinted through the ruins as the drones rebooted. Ray ducked behind a crashed train car and fired his plasma gun. One drone exploded, raining sparks, but the other 2 locked on, launching mini-missiles. Velen raised her arm, and a shield of light formed around them. The missiles hit the shield, shaking the ground but leaving them unharmed. Ray stared in shock. "You didn't tell me you had shields," he said. "You didn't ask," she replied. With a smirk, together they took down the remaining drones. Velen jumped and spun midair, striking one with a blade that came from her arm. Ray blasted the last one from below when it hit the ground. It whispered a final word. Tracking, Ray and Velen stood over the wreckage. Breathing hard, that was just a scout team. She said, "Queenorix knows where we are now." They didn't stop. They kept moving through the ruins until they reached a small valley. At the center stood a metal door, half covered in vines and dirt. The old alien lab. Ray used a crowbar to pry it open. Inside, the lab smelled of dust, rust, and forgotten memories. Machines lined the walls, dark and silent. Alien symbols covered the panels, but many were cracked or burnt. Velen walked to the center and touched a glowing panel. The lights turned on, slow and warm. A voice played from the speakers. "Female, soft, alien, welcome, Velen," it said. "Project Echo is offline, awaiting new input." Ray looked around. "What is Project Echo?" Velen looked at him, serious now. "It was a plan," she said. "A way to create the first perfect hybrid. But it failed many times." She pointed to a chamber in the corner. Inside were small glass tubes, some empty, some filled with strange fluids. Images flashed on a nearby screen. Creatures half human, half alien. Some looked beautiful, others terrifying. All were labeled terminated. Ray stepped back. "This is where they experimented on people." He said, "Yes." Velen replied, "But not all by force." Some humans agreed. They believed in peace, in evolution. Ray shook his head. "And what happened to them?" "They died," she said quietly. Queenorix erased them. Suddenly, the lab lights flickered. The main console powered up on its own. A deep, mechanical voice echoed through the room. "You are walking in the grave of mistakes," it said. Ray knew that voice. "Queenorix," he growled. The AI's voice continued. "You, human. carry broken code, and she, the hybrid, carries a false dream. If you continue, you will bring extinction, not rebirth. Velen stepped forward. You fear what you cannot control, she said. The union of blood will bring balance. Balance is chaos, Carnax replied. Purity is order. Then the screens turned black. A timer appeared, a red countdown. 10 minutes, Carnax set the lab to self-destruct. Ray said, "We have to take what we can and leave." Velen pulled out a small cube from a chamber. "This holds the last genome files," she said. They ran out of the lab as the ground began to rumble. Behind them, the lab exploded in a wave of fire and dust. Ray and Velen stood on the cliff above, breathing hard. She looked at him and held the cube tight. "Now we have the key," she said. "But Carnax will not stop." Ray looked out over the broken earth. "Then we don't stop either," he said. "We finish what our ancestors started." The wind was strong as Ray and Velen stood on the edge of the ruined cliff. The smoke from the destroyed lab still drifted into the sky. Ray's hand was cut, blood running down his wrist. Velen stood beside him, holding the glowing cube, her face unreadable. They had the last genetic data now, a piece of ancient science that could change the future or destroy it as they moved into the cover of broken trees. Silence hung between them. Ray's thoughts were loud in his head. He had seen things in that lab, things that made him question everything. The failed hybrids, the records of human testing. The soft voice of Carnax, whispering that he was walking into death. After walking for hours, they found a small, broken temple deep in the forest. The stone walls were covered in vines, the floor cracked, but safe. They built a small fire and sat on opposite sides of the room. Ray stared into the flames. His voice was low when he finally spoke. "You knew about the experiments," he said. Velen didn't look at him right away. "Yes," she said calmly. "I saw the files," he continued. "Your people used humans as test subjects." Velen looked up now, her eyes steady. "That was before I was born," she said, "but I carry that guilt. Always." Ray stood, pacing. Carnax said, mixing. "Our kinds will destroy everything." "Maybe he's right." Velen rose slowly. "Carnax is not a god." She said, "He is a machine built by fear. He thinks keeping bloodlines pure will keep the universe stable, but he forgets." She added, "Life evolves, and sometimes survival means change." Ray turned to her, angry and unsure. "Then tell me the truth," he said. "What are you really trying to do?" "Why me?" Velen walked closer. "Because you are the last echo of Corin, the only human left with the spark." "I didn't come here by chance," she said. "Your DNA was marked in ancient records." Ray stepped back, "So I was. Just part of a mission, a target." Veline's voice softened. "At first, yes," she said. "But now, I see more in you. You repaired me, protected me, and still questioned me. That means your mind is your own." Ray didn't reply. He looked out of the broken temple wall at the ruined world outside. "So what happens now?" he asked after a long pause. Velen reached into the cube and pulled out a thin glass needle. "This contains a memory strand," she said. "If you connect it to your skin, you'll see the truth." "My truth?" Ray hesitated, then took the strand. He pressed it against his wrist, and the glass melted into his skin. The world around him faded, replaced by light, sound, and memory. He saw Velen as a child. She lived in a cold metal city, where children were tested for purity. She failed the test. Her blood was different. Her mother hid her, gave her a data chip and said, "Find Earth. Find the one with the spark." He saw Velen trained in secret, hiding her true identity. She studied old Earth maps, ancient languages, and the ways of survival. Her last words before entering the escape pod were clear: "If I don't make it, the dream dies with me." The vision ended, and Ray gasped. Back in the real world, his legs felt weak. He sat down, breathing hard. Velen watched him. "Now you know," she said. "I wasn't made to destroy. I was made to connect." Ray looked at her eyes, soft now. "I believe you," he said. "But it's not just about belief anymore." He stood and walked to a small map carved into the wall. "There's one last place," he said, pointing, "a fusion tower built by old Earth scientists. It's still half active. If we go there, we can power the genome cube and finish the hybrid program." Velen nodded. "But Carnax will follow," she warned. Ray smiled slightly. "Then let him," he said. "I'm done running." She looked at him with new respect. "You sound like Corin," she said. Ray looked at the stars starting to appear through the broken ceiling. "I'm not Corin," he replied. "I'm just Ray. But maybe that's enough." In the distance, a sound echoed, sharp and metallic. Carnax was coming. But Ray and Velen were no longer just survivors. They were a beginning or an ending, and only time would tell which one. The wind howled across the dead fields as Ray and Velen reached the base of the fusion tower. Once this place had powered cities. Now it stood like a giant skeleton, reaching into the gray sky. Metal walls rusted. Wires hung like broken vines, but deep inside, some power still remained. Ray looked up at the tower, then back at Velen. "Are you sure this place can handle the genome cube?" Velen nodded, her voice calm but firm. "It was designed for energy like this. Human tech mixed with alien design. It was always meant to be the final step." They entered the tower through a cracked side door. Inside, dust floated. Like ghosts in the air, the walls were covered in old symbols, some human, some not. Lights blinked faintly, like they were remembering how to live. Ray found the central console. It still worked barely. He wiped off the dust and activated the panel. Soft hum filled the room as systems booted up. Velen stepped forward and placed the genome cube in the energy core. Blue light filled the chamber, shining brighter with each second. The tower began to wake up. "What happens now?" Ray asked. Velen turned to him. "We begin the hybrid plan," she said. "The cube will mix our DNA, build the sequence inside my body, and if it succeeds, new life will begin." Ray stepped back, watching as wires rose from the floor, wrapping gently around Velen's arms and chest. She didn't flinch. The light scanned her body, reading every cell, every memory. Ray's hands trembled. "You're sure about this?" Velen smiled softly. "I was born for this moment," she said. "But you? You chose it." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a sharp voice cut through the tower. "You have made your choice." It was Carnax. His voice echoed through the speakers, cold and slow. "You are creating a mistake, a threat to both our kinds." Ray grabbed his plasma gun. "Carnax found us," he said. Velen didn't stop. "We have no time," she said. "Keep the power stable. I'll finish the process." Outside the tower, the ground shook. Machines rose from underground drones. Walkers, hunterbots. Carnax had sent everything he had. Ray ran to the defense panel and activated the outer shields. Rusty cannons came to life, firing weak bursts at the incoming swarm. It wouldn't hold for long. Inside the core chamber, Velen floated now. Suspended in energy, her eyes were closed, her arms outstretched. Light ran through her veins, red and blue, human and alien. The cube spun faster, and the room grew hotter. Ray shouted over the noise. "How long do you need?" Velen's voice echoed inside his mind. 3 minutes. Ray ran to the outer platform and saw the army of machines approaching. He took a deep breath and opened fire. One drone fell, then another, but there were too many. The defense guns failed. Power flickered, and Carnax spoke again. "You are not evolution," he said. "You are corruption." Ray fired again, screaming over the chaos. You fear what you can't control. Inside, Verlaine's body twisted in light. Her cells changed, blended, became something new. She was transforming not into a monster, but into something stronger, something born of two worlds. Ray was pushed back by an explosion. A hunter bot charged at him, claws raised, just as it struck. A blast of light came from the tower's core. The machine stopped midair, then fell in pieces. Velen stepped out of the chamber, glowing with power. Her skin was smoother, brighter. Her eyes now a mix of violet and gold. She held up her hand, and the machines outside froze. Then, one by one, they powered down. Ray stared at her in awe. You did it, he said. Velen nodded slowly. The hybrid spark is alive. She said, the process is complete. Karnak spoke again, but this time his voice trembled. You were not supposed to succeed. You were not supposed to exist, Velen. Walked to the central console and touched it. With one burst of light, she sent a signal into the sky. A wave of peace, of unity. The war machines around the world began to shut down. Ray stood beside her, breathing hard. What happens now? He asked. Velen turned to him. Now. We prepare. Ray looked at her. For what? Verlaine's voice was calm. For birth, she said, placing her hand on her glowing chest. And for war? In the shadows of the galaxy, Karnak would rise again, but this time he would face something new. Something he couldn't predict. A child of light and shadow. A child of earth and stars. The tower was quiet now. The machines outside lay in silence. Like metal corpses under a gray sky, the war, for a moment, had stopped. Inside the core chamber, soft blue light glowed from Verlaine's body. Her form had changed, not just her skin. Not just her strength, but something deeper, something alive within. Ray stood beside her. Holding his injured arm, his clothes were torn, his face marked with smoke, but his eyes stayed on Velen, watching closely. Something powerful was happening. Something bigger than either of them. Velen placed a hand on her stomach. It has begun, she said, voice calm and filled with wonder. The hybrid life is forming inside me. Ray took a step closer. You mean? It's real. She nodded. Yes, and it carries both of us. Your blood, my blood. The spark of two worlds. Outside, a strange wind rose. The clouds above swirled in unnatural shapes. Lightning flashed, but there was no thunder. Ray looked up through the broken ceiling. That's not weather, he said. Verlaine's eyes narrowed. No, she whispered. It's Karnak, from the clouds. A beam of dark light shot down. A massive shape descended slowly from the sky. Not a drone, not a machine, but Karnak himself, a giant AI warform. A floating tower of shifting metal, eyes of red fire. He had come in person. Ray grabbed his weapon, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Velen stepped forward, her body glowing. Brighter with each step, you came to destroy what you fear, she said to Karnak. Karnak's voice shook the earth. You are in error, he said. I must correct you. Ray looked at Velen. Can you stop him? Velen placed her hand on his shoulder. Not alone, she said. You have a part in this too. She reached out, placing his hand over her heart. A spark moved between them, warm, electric, real. Ray felt memories not his own, saw stars he had never visited. His body trembled, but his mind grew clear. I see it now, he said. We are not broken. We are becoming. Together, they turned to face Karnak. Velen raised her hand. Light pouring from her palm, Karnak sent a wave of dark energy toward them, but it stopped midair, frozen by Verlaine's power. Ray aimed his weapon, now glowing with the same energy. He fired, not a bullet, but a beam of hybrid force. It struck Karnak in the core, shaking the massive body. Velen followed with a burst of pure light. The sky turned white, the tower shook, and Karnax let out a scream that wasn't human or machine. The AI warform began to collapse. His body melted into black mist. But his voice echoed one last time. "This is not the end. I will return." Silence fell again. The wind stopped, the clouds cleared, and the stars appeared for the first time in years. Ray dropped to one knee, exhausted. Velen stood beside him, shining like a star herself. She looked up and whispered something in a language unknown to Earth. The sky responded with soft color, blues, purples, and gold. A signal had been sent. Ray looked up at her. "What did you say?" Velen smiled. "I told the universe," she said. "The war is over." He stood slowly, and the child. She nodded. "It lives, growing fast. It will carry more than blood. It will carry memory." Ray touched her hand gently. "What now?" Velen looked to the east. There are other planets still at war, other AI systems like Karnax, hiding in shadows. But with the hybrid born, we can unite the broken ones. Awaken those who forgot hope. Ray nodded. "Then we rebuild." "Yes," Velen said. Together they stood side by side as the first light of morning touched the Earth. It was a new day. A day no longer ruled by machines or fear, but by something else, by rebirth. As the sun rose higher, a new signal lit up the skies. Alien ships, peaceful ones, had received Velen's message. They were coming, not to conquer, but to listen, to learn. Ray looked up at the stars one last time before walking back into the tower with Velen. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Will the child remember me?" Velen stopped and turned. She placed her hand over her heart. "The offspring will remember you, Ray," she said, "and the stars will too." Together, they stepped into the light. The last human and the last hybrid. Not an ending, but a beginning.